Welcome to Judge My Round with Tom Brennan. Let's get started. Okay, Ashley, we're going to get started by having a first look at your video. I haven't seen it until now. I haven't read through your questions or your email yet. I like to watch it fresh. Obviously, it's a venue I'm familiar with and a horse that I am familiar with, who I tend to like. So let's have a look. Right off the bat, it's a great canter. Hopefully we keep this all the way to the first jump. Really, really great presentation for the first jump. Oh, he shied away a little there from the corner. I'm not sure if that was the banner or the in-gate. Jump 2 looked a little long from this vantage point, but everyone was on the same page. And just from knowing Finnegan a little, he's good at stretching. Really nice out of that first line. He's still noticing that banner, I think. Pretty good up the diagonal. I'm thinking we're getting a little ahead of ourselves in the pace department here. I'd like to see you rein it in a little just to make these two match. Yeah, I just got up that last line a little early, and he's still eyeballing that banner there. But that's a pretty nice round. Just first impressions for me, if I were judging this class in the adult hunters, he's beautifully turned out. You guys are very suitable to one another. It's a nice quality horse that should be in that division and should be competitive in that division. I think the first 5 jumps, maybe even 6 jumps, he was looking like a horse that probably could win any of these classes. The last jump for me got there too early, too deep. It wasn't a great jump. And for that reason, I'd probably have him somewhere in the 75 to 78 range. There were a lot of good things that I wanted to reward, so I wouldn't kill him for the last jump, but it definitely didn't match. And in the next section, we'll talk about a few things that we can do to maybe see if we get a better result. Ashley, now that we've had a chance to look at your video one time, I've also gone through your email that was sent in with your submission and seen your questions. And we're going to break down your round and hopefully identify a few places that you can improve to get a better score next time. So let's get going here. 498 is for 81st. When you come in, I don't mind the walk. I know some people think that judges really don't like when you walk. I think you're pretty efficient. You get through the gap in the jumps and strike a canter. I think you're fine there. I wouldn't want you to be walking much longer. I want to see you get to work, but you're a pretty good exhibitor in that sense. You didn't waste anyone's time. I thought that was totally appropriate, and then you got to a great start with this first jump. Now, right there, your horse does shy away from that banner, like you mentioned in your question. And normally I cover questions at the end, but since I pointed it out in my first analysis of your video, and your question specifically was, how much do you take off when a horse does something like that? It's a hard question to answer because it's kind of like a horse rubbing a jump. Not all rubs are created equally, and not all shying aways are created equally, if that makes sense. To me, your horse didn't spook. It just shied away. A spook would be worse. Your horse doesn't look afraid. It didn't become unrideable. His expression didn't change. Those are things that I would start saying, okay, this is a problem for this round. That to me just looked like a horse saying, I don't really want to go over there. He still did his job. He still was a willing participant. And I think it's a common thing to see when you go to some of these indoor venues. So far, I actually wouldn't be taking off any points. Maybe I can't give you as many points as I want as a horse who might be super at ease with the venue, but I'm not penalizing him. Let's continue here. On the way to jump 2, it actually looks like an okay jump. You have a good gallop, and he's a little long to it. But what we're going to talk about more than that is you. So as we approach jump 2, if you start to recognize the jump is getting a little long, that's one thing. And how you handle that as a rider is something you work on and practice with your trainer. From a judging point of view, if you're calm about it, it's going to be presented better. When I start seeing you as the rider gyrate around or flap your elbows or look a little nervous about it, where you're digging in at your saddle with your seat or kicking very hard, that just tells a story with your body to me that things aren't going well. You're not on the exact smooth feel you want to be on. It's not all feeling easy. So that's where showmanship comes in a little bit. Of course, we'd all like to have a perfect distance every time, but I wouldn't worry about it so much unless I see the rider worry about it a lot. And I think you end up taking off a few points more because of that concern on the rider's part. So we're going to watch that with that in mind, and maybe that's something you can work on, just not telling a story with your body if something isn't perfect. So next time we'll just try to show that off a little better. And I think this line here is great. It's totally division appropriate. A little bit of body movement up that line, but he jumps out really well. Kind of eyeballs his banner there. And then here at this jump, he's a little bit out of form, but I don't think there's anything that you could or should do about that. He's just a little behind your leg. Now, before we get started talking about the last line, which is really where I think you can make the most improvement, I want to just point out everything so far has gone really pretty well. Yes, jump 2 wasn't the best, and yes, he shied away, but so far in most adult amateur classes, this is very competitive. What we're going to watch here is the pace change. The pace change is a fault, and there's no way of getting around that. You've been on one pretty consistent gallop all the way around. You had to squeeze him pretty hard into the diagonal line, and as a result, by the time you're up at this far end of the ring, you've got a little more stride and a little more pace than you've had so far on course. I think the last jump, which we talked about in our initial viewing, where it gets deep and jumps out of form, that's really a symptom of this pace change. So a big thing I'm looking for when I'm judging is, does a horse start and finish the same? Does everything match? And here this last line clearly doesn't. So we're going to watch this a time or two, and it's not that you're not accurate or that he jumps poorly in, but we're covering way more ground than we have been. We have 3 big steps, 1 medium, and 1 very short step. Those 5 steps just don't match each other. So if I go way back, we're going to compare it to the diagonal line, where every stride is pretty much the same. Those all look like the same size strides. As we come to this last line, however, we land and we have 3 big ground covering steps, 1 where you're measuring and saying this is too early, and then 1 very short, not chippy, but close step out. So if we go back to the beginning and watch it one more time, we're going to recap some of the things we can do better. We might get to work a little bit sooner, but this is acceptable. I don't think there's a lot of improvement for this part of the course. I really liked the beginning. If you and your trainers find a way to make your horse a little more comfortable at the venue that he's at so that he doesn't shy away, yes, that would be an improvement. But I wouldn't get hung up on it. On the way to jump 2, when we realize we're a little bit far away, we're going to try to work that out without making the judge so aware of it not being a comfortable choice for us or our horse. Same thing in this first line. Gonna make sure we're not being more active at making it look difficult than it really is. I think this diagonal line worked out really well for you. It's out of stride, it was smooth, and it really matched. Here we're going to come up the last line in a pace that matches the rest of the course better. Going to really make an effort here to not let it get away from us at the end of the course with a big stride. And if we can do those things, I think you're going to find that you have a little better score. Ashley, in the last section of this video, I want to answer your question about the Pelham, and does it affect a judge's opinion of your horse? I can only speak for myself, but judging is situational and relative. I'm looking for the best horse that day who goes well to win the class. To me, your horse in this video looks easy, confident, and rideable. In no way would I give your horse a demerit for wearing a Pelham. That is conventional tack used in a conventional manner. For reference, here's the rule from the Hunter section of our rule book. I hope you found this video useful today, and I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to judge your round.